All right, so we have a very special guest on the podcast today for Gypsy Tales, Brad Smeele. Must admit, I'm definitely a fan of the wakeboard style when I was a little grommy cruising around.
Rad. Yeah, no, thanks, man. It's cool to be here.
So we've got like a ton of mutual friends, but we've never actually met. So I'm like super close with Harley, obviously Jeff, all the Florida crew. So it's always cool when like this podcast come about because we did the one with Jeff obviously the other day, and then you're in town, and then Jeff's like, you got to get on the podcast. So I love when that like 6 degrees of separation happens, and then you end up like kind of knowing people, or like you feel like you know someone because of how many mutual friends you've got. Yeah,
totally. I mean, it's rad. I was stoked when Jeff brought it up and when you sent through the message. So, you know, off to the airport at a couple of hours, so I managed to squeeze it in this morning. So no, it's cool.
I know. So you've gone from pro wakeboarder to pro wedding MC, eh?
Yeah. No, it's really cool. So I'm off to Sydney for a buddy's wedding, and just take on the new roles as they come, and it's a new sort of, I guess, a new world now outside of the wakeboard scene, and just taking any opportunities. And I think the speaking roles seem to be coming up, whether it's emceeing weddings or doing corporate events and speaking at schools and things like that. So no, it's been a new challenge, but seem to be taking it on. Yeah,
just a journey. I think like with a guy like you, with the way that you attacked wakeboarding, I think that there's a certain mentality that you had, which was like a champion mindset. So I think that you now can take that champion mindset into all this other stuff that's like coming at you. Like, have you actually kind of found that that's how it sort of worked for you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's been a huge learning curve. I mean, basically before my accident with wakeboarding and everything, and with, I mean, everything I did like to earn a living. I mean, whether it was landscaping or modeling and promo work or things like that, everything was physical.
Yeah.
So then having all of that stripped away, like I had to kind of redefine who I was, and like, and that was a huge challenge through the first couple of years after the injury. And I think I'm at the point now, and over the last couple of years, where I've really been embracing the journey and just kind of just trying to learn and kind of take on new challenges and apply my mindset and just, I guess, figuring out who I am outside of that physical, the physical ability. So, all of these challenges, all these new opportunities that come up and everything like that, just try to, just take them as they come and apply myself the best I can. And, it's really cool actually. Like I didn't really realize I had some of the I guess mental capacity that I do have, and it's definitely a growing experience.
It's crazy. I was thinking about it in the car on the way here, because I guess we haven't gone into your injury or whatever. So for the people that aren't watching the video and just listening to it on iTunes, so you're a quadriplegic from the shoulders down from a wakeboard accident.
Yeah.
So I was thinking on the way here, I was like, man, you're trapped in a way to where you can't kind of express yourself physically.
Totally.
But does that then show you like how strong the mind is? Because I think for like we're almost, when you can use your arms and legs and you've got those physical capabilities, that's like a pretty big distraction from your mind in a way, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think when before my accident, and with most people, when you're frustrated or you're angry or you need a vent and or burn some energy or anything, you can just go outside, go for a run, yell into your pillow, whatever, punch something. Like, it's just, to be able to vent those frustrations is so much easier when you have that physical ability. And that's definitely something I've had to learn and just work through, I guess, the power of the mind. And I've had some, a really amazing, I guess, mentor and a guide through this. So it's a woman named Susie, who was, she was my Pilates instructor before my accident, and with I had a knee reconstruction and then shoulder reconstruction, lower back problems, then another knee injury, and pretty much she would help me work through all of those injuries, and not just in the physical sense, but also in the mental side of things. She's a kinesiologist as well, and so after my injury, she's pretty much been on board since day one. She's come and seen me every week, pretty much for the last almost 4 years, and whether it's been working through the kinesiology side of things, doing muscle testing.
So what is kinesiology for people that don't know? Because I don't know as well.
It's basically, and I'll try not to butcher it, but it's basically kind of figuring out what the body needs and what the body is trying to tell you. Like she can, it's kind of hard with me because usually you hold your arm out straight.
Yeah.
She'll be able to push down and get a yes or no answer from the body as to what it needs or what's sort of going on with it, and then they can use those messages and those answers to help work through things like, certain type of stresses impact certain parts of the body. So it could be the kidney, or it could be the stomach, or the gallbladder, or this or that. And so she'll figure out what that is, and then she'll get in and start rubbing that part of the body and create a drain to kind of help release that sort of stress. And whether it's that kinesiology side of things and actually physically trying to help release that sort of stress, or the other side of things, she's really just helped me. Sometimes we'll just sit there and just talk for the hour that she's there, and almost like a therapy session, and with no real pressure on what we talk about. We just talk about whatever comes up, and usually there'll be a message there, or there'll be something to learn from. And she's really helped me work through ways of identifying, like I guess things that come up that bring up certain emotions, things that'll cause anxiety or make me upset, or things like that. And I guess it's just realizing what causes those, and and understanding the way that we can work through them. Because if I am watching a bunch of wakeboarding, or I'm scrolling through social media too much, or I'm doing this or that, and this is going back before I was able to sort of process it properly and work through it. But there'd be times where whether it's jealousy, or I feel like I'm missing out, and I guess there's a lot of things, perspective and things like that come into play, and I've been able to learn ways to work through all that, and it's been really cool to actually to work through that journey and realize how sort of powerful the mind is, and that I guess it's understanding ourselves and the way that we work, like this metacognition of sort of like, this thing happens in front of me, so this is how I respond. So
and like responding in the moment before you've seen how it actually plays out when it's done, kind of thing.
And so like knowing how my brain and how I'm going to respond to certain situations means that I can get on top of it early and not let it really affect me in a negative way. It's been really interesting, and it's something that I'm learning more and more about, and it's something that I want to help pass on to others, because it's a powerful thing. You don't have to be a quadriplegic to be able to
get control over your mind.
So hopefully I'm whether it's through corporate talks, or just messages through social media or whatever, it's something I really want to be able to pass on.
Did you because I know since I've started the podcast, I almost took for granted the power of a real conversation. So like what we're doing now, and this is one of the things where I'm almost addicted to this now, because I sit down with people that, some people I don't know, like yourself, some people I've known for 10, 11 years. But when you dedicate time to have a real conversation with no agenda, and like you said before, there's no real guide of what's going to get said. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going in there with any intent. But when you just start talking, and it's you're listening as well as talking, instead of like kind of waiting for your turn to talk almost.
Totally.
Then there's a pretty crazy thing that happens between two people when you, and for yourself, like you said, there's healing and a message in that when you do just have a real conversation. And
it's such a, like, it's actually something you need, like a skill. It's
100%.
It's something to work on, like to actually be able to have a proper conversation, and because you know, a lot of the time people are just waiting for that opportunity, as you said, to just to talk, you know, and they're not even really listening. They're just waiting for that gap to just start talking again. And it's really cool when you know, because I've come across a lot of people that I've never met before, and they just, whether it's messages through Instagram or, you know, something, and then I'll end up FaceTiming them, other people with injuries or in certain situations that they connect with my story, and to be able to have that sort of a conversation with someone and listen to what they're wanting to say, and kind of, I guess, taking it on, and, you know, it's really cool actually. It's quite refreshing, like, rather than sitting around with your mates and half of them are on their phone, and you know, like, it's just it's really cool to have an authentic conversation. So. And
do you think you appreciated it before your injury?
Not as much as now.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So
yeah, it's definitely that's been one of the, I guess, the big things with this, and even some of the early podcasts I did, I was like, you critique yourself, because you're right, like, a conversation is a skill to have, and to not I think when I first started doing this, I was like, get like flustered, like trying to think ahead of what I had to say, and not like, because a conversation can like breathe, and there's all this sort of cool stuff that happens, and you end up getting a lot out of it, and for yourself, when you can really just kind of go deep and block out all the other noise, and because there is so many distractions that kind of keep us out of that.
Yeah, oh, completely. I mean, something, you know, with the noise in your mind, and the quietening that noise is such a skill as well. Like, whether it is through a conversation and you know, just taking the moment as it is and kind of moving through it. But like, I mean, before my injury, like, wakeboarding was my method to quieten that noise. Like, while I was riding, there was nothing else going on. You're in the moment, and it's like, it's just clarity. And I found it really hard to find something else, or find a way to quieten that noise without wakeboarding and without that sort of release. And you know, so there's just been finding new ways, whether it is like meditating or you know, and it's finding ways to switch off, you know, like, because there, as you said earlier, you know, without that physical sort of ability, it's like the mind is just going, like, and it's you know, it becomes louder because there aren't these sort of ways to distract myself as much. And so yeah, it's just finding other ways, and you know, definitely switching off. Like, you know, I've been, you know, working on really applying myself and applying my mind, and kind of coming up with ways to keep myself busy. But at the same time, like, if I am trying to do that all the time, I give myself anxiety. And so it's definitely, you know, definitely good to switch off every now and again. And you know, and even if it's just kicking back, watching a movie, or you know, something like that, going for beers with friends. And went for beers the other night with a few buddies, and with Jeff, and
yeah, he was pretty lit up when he got back home.
And it's funny, because that's the most amount of beer I've drunk since the last time I was in Australia. So
there's a trend.
A couple of years ago. So it's definitely a trend. I mean, I don't drink as much anymore. It's just not so pleasant. Like, getting drunk isn't fun, because I can't do a lot, and then it just gives me nerve pains, and, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and just I struggle to sleep afterwards, and things like that. So it's just, I'll have a couple of beers, you know, just because I enjoy drinking a beer, and, you know, have a little Jameson and Dry or something like that, just to get a little bit of a buzz going. But any more than that is no fun. So but it was a good time the other night with all the crew. So
it's funny you were saying, like, with meditation, because I am a big I'm a big believer, because I do a lot of mountain bike, jiu-jitsu, motocross, surfing. Like, I'm big on that, because I didn't really understand it until I looked into, like, meditation and started reading, you know, kind of spirituality sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That the goal of, you know, these monks and these, you know, like, heavy yoga practitioners is to, like, get to that point where they feel detached from their mind, and it's fully living in the moment. And I think that it's a recent thought, is that that's what guys like us did. We did, but I don't think we knew that when we kind of got into it. I think it's as you get a bit older, you're like, hey, what I'm doing is meditation.
Yeah.
So now, then I was wondering with you now, is like, are you getting deeper into that? Well, I've got to now figure out a way to detach, because I was chasing that through wakeboarding. Now I've got to figure out a new way to do it.
Yeah, man. And it's trippy when you start to think into it a lot. Like, when you think about, like, who am I really? Like, I'm not my body. I'm not the brain that's sitting inside my head. Like, I'm a series of, like, electrical impulses and things going on in your mind. And it's like, and I wish I could remember this quote, but it's something about, like, the brain creates mind. Like, your mind is like all the noise and everything that's going on, but that's still not me. Like, what is this noise? Like, it's almost like other people talking inside there, like saying all these different things and everything going on. So it's, as you said, detaching from that. And I've been using a lot of, sort of guided meditation, things like videos and things that, they just sort of guide you through it. And I've actually found, like, when I've been able to meditate, or I've found when I've been able to get into it really well and clear my mind, like, generally I'll wake up and I'm like, didn't even realize I'd fallen asleep.
Yeah.
And sometimes I, don't remember what time it is, what day it is. And then I'll wake up out of this sleep just feeling, it's only been 10 minutes or something, just feeling so incredibly rested and
because
refreshed.
You've got to detach.
Exactly. And it's such a powerful thing that, a lot of people talk about it and a lot of people do it. And it is a difficult thing to be able to do that, to be able to quieten that noise, because
I definitely can't get there through meditation. I've tried guided meditation, and I've tried some of those kind of techniques, and not a lot, because I think I can just go back to that default of, like, going for a mountain bike or whatever, and doing something that requires all of your attention. But for you to be able to do that, like, that's a crazy skill to be able to get to that place.
Yeah, and I'm nowhere near getting there yet. Like, I'm still just a.
Have you noticed that you've gotten better at it though?
Yeah.
Like in the 4 years, I guess.
Yeah, and I think for those first couple of years, I would sort of just, what I'd say, meditate in my own way, and that's just sort of taking myself to a place that I. That I really enjoy and that was really peaceful, and for me that was sitting on a stand-up paddleboard out in the middle of Lake Roanoke at 7 o'clock in the morning as the sun's rising and the birds are starting to chirp and it's just completely still and tranquil. And so I would just take myself there in my mind.
So you're visualizing that in your mind.
Yeah, and that was what I was doing originally, and then I've sort of just been kind of working through some of the guided meditations and stuff now, and it's all about just all the noise that comes in, it's letting it come in, but just letting it kind of move through, not focusing on it and exploring, like, where that thought came from and where it's going. It's just letting it appear and then acknowledging it and then kind of moving on. And it's the same with, hearing things as well, listening to your breath and things like that. It's just, you hear it, but you're not just focusing on it and not letting it kind of become this thing that you're thinking about that's bouncing around in your brain.
Are you like, have you found that you can explore into your psyche deeper than you could before? Because I guess you spend so much time with those voices that everybody has those voices, but I think it's easy to get away from when you've got that physical outlet. Yeah. So have you have you dived deep into those and found, like, little places in your psyche and things like that? Like, have you kind of gone exploring in a way that maybe other people can't?
It's hard to say. I guess it's the main thing I've really found is I've really been able to figure out, like, I guess where a lot of these thoughts are coming from, and sort of what's causing them and where they're taking me, and I think that's really important because knowing how you respond to certain thoughts and things like that, it means you can control your happiness and your emotions and things like that. And that's one thing that I guess after my injury, like I found, when I was, because I was quite depressed obviously afterwards, and as much as I'd put on a positive face all the time, like sometimes it was bullshit, like I wasn't happy, but I felt like I needed to be happy or pretend to be happy for everyone else.
Because you wanted to care for the people around you.
Exactly. And I knew I could see how much it was hurting others. So by me putting on that brave face meant they were able to be...
Sleep a bit
happy.
easier.
Yeah, exactly. And where was I going with that? But yeah, so I guess I was able to, when I was in the spinal unit, there were other guys with injuries, and my level of injury is a C4, so that basically gives me shoulder movement, but doesn't give me bicep or anything through my arms. Whereas if I was to have a C5 level injury, one level lower, you get bicep movement, you get a little bit of arm function, and a lot of people with C5 injuries, they can get into a manual wheelchair where they're pushing themselves around and have a bit of arm function. And so I was looking at these guys and I was like, man, I'm so jealous, and like I really wish I was in that position. Whereas before my injury, there's no way in hell I would have ever wished for something like that. And then I get home to the spinal unit here in New Zealand, and there's a guy with a C2 level injury. And so that's basically, he can't even move his neck. He's got like face movement. He drives his wheelchair using his joystick on his chin, full time on the ventilator. And I'm looking at this going, man, I am so grateful for a C4 level injury. And I was like, how is that even possible that I can look this way and be jealous and ungrateful, and then I look that way and I can be grateful and happy with where I appreciate where I'm at? And I was like, it's all about perspective, and to be able to understand that and kind of understand when that sort of thing's coming up. And if you are feeling jealous about something, or if you are feeling unappreciative or whatever it is, then it is just perspective, and you've got to, it's powerful to be able to have control over that, and
almost like see that about to enter the gate, and then there's two ways it can go, and then you direct the gate that it goes in towards that grateful positivity almost. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's where a lot of depression comes in and things with people, is because say you come from a underprivileged background, and you're not wealthy or anything like that, but you're hanging out with a bunch of rich guys, you're always going to feel like less, like you don't have enough, you're not good enough. But if you go for a stroll through the hood, you're going to feel like a lot better about, appreciate where you're at. So again, it comes down to perspective, and it's so powerful to be able to have control of that and understand, how that affects your mind and your just your happiness. So that's definitely something that that I've learned that's super powerful, and if I can help other people learn that, then that's something that I would love to be able to pass on, and feel like I'm doing the world some good.
No, man, I totally agree, and I think that in my own personal life, I try and think of life as super binary. So there's only two options for every single thing that you've got, and that's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And I think that people like to think that life is more complicated than that. Like, no, life isn't just a yes or a no. But I think that at everything that comes at you in your life, do you want to do this podcast? Yes or no? Do you want to go for a workout in the morning? Yes or no? Do you want to eat the right food? Yes or no? Yeah. Every single thing. And your life is only the accumulation of the yeses or the nos at any sort of turn. You know what I mean? And I think that people like to overcomplicate life, and they think, I've got this and I've got this and I've got all this stuff going on and I can't cope with this and this is coming at me. But again, it just comes down to these yeses and nos. And I think that it becomes a powerful thing if you can take one thing at a time and say yes or no.
Totally.
Yes
it's about
or no.
Just taking those yeses or nos in the moment.
And owning once you've done it.
Because it becomes so much more than a yes or a no when you start thinking too far into the future and as to what, and also thinking about like how it's going to, if I don't do this, then that person's going to get upset and this or that. And it's like, just whittle it down to its most simplest thing. It's do you want to do it? Yes or no? Is it going to be good for me? Yes or no? I like that. It's a cool way to look at it.
And I think that too, it becomes a lot easier to own the problems in your life, because I still deal with things right now that are a result of a stupid yes or no call that I made years ago. And I still deal with that now.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I can't change that now. I chose that decision with all the information that I had at the time, or I maybe let that slip through the cracks a little bit. I didn't give enough attention to the yes or the no that I was giving it. But at the end of the day, I did that.
Yeah.
And I can't change that now. And all I can influence over is the yeses or the nos that come into the system. Because I just like to think of our brain as like a computer.
Yeah.
Because computers are zeros and ones, which is like a yes or a no.
Totally.
So I just think breaking your life into those things, and you might have fucked up. You crashed your wakeboard. You know what I mean. But that was a yes you said in the moment, and then now that yes is gone. All you get is the ones that come after it. And I think that, like what you said, you have to be able to find a way to find happiness in the moment with the yeses and the nos that you've said in the past, or the ones that you're going to say in the future. You know what I mean? And we can't determine the ones that are going to come at us in the future. No. All we can deal with is the ones right now. Yeah,
and we can't change the ones that we made in the past. So it's, as you said, it's dealing with things as they are now. And because this, like, if I really focused on it and thought about it a lot, there's a lot of regrets that I could go back to and go, if I didn't do this, if I didn't do that, if I didn't back out on the double flip right at that moment, if I'd have just continued as I had planned, then, I wouldn't be in this position. But at the end of the day, like, we can't go back, we can't change those things, and we've just got to, just take life as it is right now. And that presence is such a powerful thing as well. That's another thing that Susie's been helping me work through, and being present is just so powerful. Like, it's, as you said, it's taking these things one step at a time, and obviously it's great to plan ahead and sort of have goals and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that you're not doing those things. It's just living in the moment and kind of being very present, and as they say, it's a gift. No, that's why they call it the present, But no, it's again such a powerful thing to be able to live in that mindset and in the moment.
I've been thinking a lot too lately about because someone said to me with like the podcast, they're like, for the ones that go for like 3 hours, they're like, how do you like do it for that long or whatever? And I've been trying to do this with a lot of stuff in my life, because you find that, like, say you've got an hour to kill before you go somewhere, and you kind of just have that like anxious, like, it's like an awkward transitional time, because you're like, well, I know I want to be here in an hour, or you're doing a task that you don't really want to do, and you're like for a dude at work, you're like, I've got an hour left until I finish work. And then you kind of start living in that present moment that's not actually there yet. And it's like a real weird place to be. But what I've tried to do, and the podcast is what made me think about it, is I try and think that this is the only thing that exists. Like, nothing actually exists right now except me and you talking. Sure, there's other stuff going on outside the walls. I've got stuff that I've got to do after this. You've got stuff you've got to do after this. But I think that there's such a beautiful thing that happens when you can just go, like, me and Brad talking is all that exists until it's done. So I'm going to give it everything. And it's like, you can kind of enjoy that moment more when you tell yourself, like, let go of the thing that you wish you were doing, or that this is a thing that you don't want to be doing. Just let go of that. Just live right here. Just own this thing right now. And you can kind of find like magic and beauty in it's just the moments, because all your life is you're just going from moment to moment to moment to moment. Some of the moments might be shit, but it's still the moment that you're in, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's so powerful to be able to apply that in whatever it is that you are doing, whether you're out surfing or whether you're, sitting at a desk working or, working on a project, whatever it is. Like, if you are completely focused on that moment and in that moment completely, then the distractions of the outside world, and whether even the distractions of your mind. Or the noise going on in there, like, you can quieten all that down if you're just focusing on that one thing and being present. So it was something that I loved about wakeboarding.
Was the presence of it.
Yeah, exactly. And
but do you think that you knew that's what you loved about it until you stopped? Did you appreciate it at the time?
Not as much. Yeah, not as much as, like, I was just having a good time. You know? Like, and that's, again, I look back and I'm like, I could have partied less and I could have focused more and tried these tricks more and done all this other stuff. But at the time, I was just living it, man. Like, it's.
But you're just the dude, like, that everybody loved to be around. You know what I mean? So, like, it's almost like that was your burden, is like when you're the dude that everyone wants to party with, everyone wants to hang around. So it's like that they were almost kind of taken away from what, like, you actually, like you said, you could have trained more, you could have whatever. Yeah. But it's like, fuck, man, you were just the dude everyone wanted to be around. Like,
we just had such a good crew, especially like over in Orlando, like, living and partying and hanging out and riding with all the Aussie crew, like
so
Dino
good.
And Scotty Broom and the Mackey brothers and Mitch Langfield and Harley and like all of those crew. Like, it was just Chriso and just, it was rad, like, and
that, to me, it seemed like that was like the best era. Like, you got it in the sweet spot, and me and Jeff were talking about that as well. Like, he kind of got it in maybe the heyday of like X Games and stuff.
He got the golden years, and I came through like a little bit after that. I still think
you guys had it pretty solid in terms of the lifestyle, because then I think like social media was coming around, and like you guys were kind of getting to put it out there to more people, and so like I think Jeff definitely got it in the heyday of like competition. But then I think that whole, like, the way you guys filmed, there were so many film parts coming out.
Oh, dude, and we were so lucky to have people like Carney and Christian, the guys that released, came along and, they were putting their lives into documenting wakeboarding and documenting what we were passionate about, which was amazing. Like, we were so fortunate to have that. And I guess, what I was saying about sort of, I guess, missing the golden years, like, with Daniel Watkins and Ike and Josh and Parks, and Jeff. Like, Jeff sort of caught the tail end of it, but that was where, the big money was coming through in sponsorship. And I feel like I peaked right as the economy took a dive. Yeah. Like, my 1080 was at the start of 2008, which was like, I'd literally, the year before, I'd gone to Surf Expo, and I'd been riding for like, Oakley for a bunch of years, and finally like get to sit down with the team manager over there, and he's like, we love what you're doing, we're going to put you on the international team and start you on like a just a base salary, whatever. But to me, I mean, I wasn't making any money. Like, at any one point, the most amount of money I was making from wakeboarding was $500 a month.
No shit.
And I just find different things and whatever else I could do to be able to get by. And so to have this team manager, like, I was so stoked to get to that point. And then,
because it's almost like recognition as well for like all the past.
Yeah, exactly. It's, it's validating everything that I'd done and me as a wakeboarder. And so I was so stoked, and I leave Surf Expo and I go back to New Zealand, and he's like, yeah, we'll send the contract out and stuff. And then months go by, emails aren't getting responded to, phone calls aren't getting answered. And then February comes around, I land the 1080, first phone call I make to him gets answered. And then it's like, oh yeah, sorry, economy this and that, blah blah blah.
Plus Oakley, was this with Oakley you were saying?
Yeah,
they went through some shit too, like, because that was right around when it got sold to Ray-Ban, was it?
Yeah, sure I can't remember. There was a bunch of shit that went on.
Yeah, there was a ton of changes,
and that was the thing. Like, I get it, but the fact that I didn't get
you just missed
back,
it,
and I didn't get like I didn't get sort of I guess like if he'd have just come to me and gone, hey mate, sorry, we can't actually pay you what I was going to, but let's work something else out, then that would have been fine. But just getting ignored and then, oh yeah, you did a 1080, cool, now I'm your buddy again. And it was just to the point where I'm like, look mate, we're done kind of thing.
That's so the industry though, in a lot of different ways, which kind of sucks. And I mean, I can see it from like the team manager's end, because then he's got his budgets and his bosses are cutting him down, and then he's worried about his job. So like,
exactly,
you kind of can't, you sort of get it, but then at the same time it's like, just answer your phone, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like I've always been really good at looking at both sides of the picture, and I understand certain situations, like even in a breakup, like I don't get mad because I get it, like I understand whatever's going on. And so I think like that was pretty frustrating for me to feel like, I'd finally like hit that, like land the 1080, then the next year I did the step up and did a few of these things that, I was right there, but it was just like
the worst possible time.
Yeah. And not only that, like coming from New Zealand as well, like, I mean, when I got here to the Gold Coast, I was like, one of my biggest regrets career-wise was not moving to Australia early on in my career for the seasons over this side, or spending, even spending more time in the US. Like I was going back to New Zealand a lot, and I guess because it was comfortable back there, and I wasn't, I'd go home after a season in the States and pretty deep amount of debt.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go home and work it off, and I think like that was something that didn't quite didn't help too much with sponsorship. Like if there's a company in the US, if there's a company in the US that wants to sponsor someone, they're only getting 6 months worth of value out of me, whereas for someone else they could get a full year's worth of value out of. And I guess I didn't quite understand that at the time, and there are a lot of things that I've learned from my mistakes. And again, that's another thing that I'd love to be able to help other people. Even young up and coming riders and things like that, even just any athletes, like if there's things that I can pass on that can help other people in their career based on the mistakes that I made and lessons that I learned, then that's a win as well, like to be able to help others with that sort of a journey. What do you think of wakeboarding now, where it's at? Man, it's interesting. Like riding wise, it's insane. It's
crazy.
Like nuts. And it's all come from the new boats and the size of the wakes.
That's what Jeff was saying when we spoke.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was having a chat with Shane Bonifay while I was in the States just a month or so ago, and we were talking about how the level has just changed so much, and it's almost like he was kind of referring to it, like comparing it with baseball, and say you go back 50 years and the amount of home runs that someone could get in a season. Let's say it's 50 home runs, whatever.
Yeah.
And then let's say, in the current day, there are people able to get like 300 home runs, but that's because the boundary's been brought in by like 50 or 100 feet. It's the same as with wakeboarding. The wake has gotten that much bigger, so it's creating this, this different playing field.
Yeah.
Tricks like a 1080, like back then in 2008, like when I landed, I was the fourth person to get it documented on film, and it was it was this huge like benchmark,
massive accomplishment, eh?
Yeah. Whereas now there are
plus
kids,
because you're a big dude too. Like you compare you to Danny Half.
Well, actually, to be honest, the first four of us that landed 1080s, like on film, you got Parks, which was the first, and he's a bit smaller, but Danny, Rusty, and myself, we're all over 6 foot tall.
Oh, I thought Danny was smaller.
No, he's quite a big dude.
And Rusty's a big dude.
Yeah, so it was kind of, I don't know if it was just a power thing,
maybe
that we were able to do it, but that was really interesting to me when I realized that. But then, now you got kids that are doing 1080s consistently off the wake, not even using a double up, and it's almost taken away from the prestige
of doing it.
But I mean, you got to kind of look at it at that the playing field's changed.
Well, it's relative to the time that it went down. It's definitely heavier in the day that you guys did it.
But again, I mean, 1080s off the wake. Like it's nuts seeing these guys, in contest too. Like Corey Tunison's just crushing it now, and it's
even the way that Harley just has double flips like a normal trick, like straight off the wake.
And it's getting to the point, like, if you don't have a double flip in your run, don't even bother.
Don't come.
Almost. Like, you're not going to make a final, pretty much. Like, I mean, there might be one or two. It depends how many people they have in the final. If it's a 6-man final, every one of those guys is going to have a double flip and going to have a wake-to-wake 9, at least, of some sort of variation, whether it's, and some of them are doing backside 9s off the wake, toe 10s off the wake. Like, and it's interesting that with the way contest has gone now, like they've actually reduced the amount of tricks that you have in your run. You used to have it used to be from this buoy to that buoy, and however many tricks you can fit in. Then it went to 5 tricks, I think, each way. Now it's down to 4. And I find that kind of weird because I feel like
that's almost going backwards when the sport should be going forward.
If everyone's got 2 double flips and 2 9s in their runs, then there's very little that they can do to differentiate what they're doing. Like, that's where I feel like, it was really cool when they had that 360 or less requirement. You have to do one trick of a 360 or less. That was where you saw like dudes doing massive backside 180s to the flats, and now you got these rewinds, which are awesome. Like, we're the only sport that can do that. With that tension of the rope, you can't do it on a snowboard.
So explain that for people that don't know what that is.
So basically, if you do like a 360 spin, you got to pass the handle behind your back. But if you leave the wake in the right way and you do it quickly enough, then you can regain tension because the boat's moving forward. You can regain that tension on the handle, and then you can rewind that spin in the opposite direction.
So you can basically go 360 one way, keep the tension on the rope, and then use that to pull yourself back around the 360 reverse the way you came.
Yeah, or even just a 180 the other way. So I mean, like one of my Ronix teammates, like Massey, he was the first to do what he calls the 0, which is like, I think it was a backside 3 to frontside 3.
That's a pretty sick name.
May have been front 3 to back 3. I can't remember which one it was, but just super cool. I love that we have that in wakeboarding, like, to differentiate us from other sports.
It's kind of a shame that you do see dudes like Chriso go kind of out of, I guess he never really was like a big competitive guy, but like you kind of can't compete, but he's probably one of the most stylish dudes to ever ride a wakeboard, and then he can't really do anything in a comp. If that makes sense.
100%. And he was one of these guys that really reinforced the whole free ride aspect. Like, because, I mean, I think it was, whether it was like a thing that he disliked contests, or whether it was just that he, maybe was finding that his style of riding wasn't getting rewarded. But he's one of these guys that I always looked up to as a rider, and just, everything that he did, he made it look just so good.
Tweaked out, poked out.
Yeah. And, I love Chris, so he's just such a legend of a dude. And, we keep in touch a lot. I haven't been able to catch up. I caught up with him actually in the States while I was over there. And, he's just doing his thing now, like snowboarding a bunch, and he'll jump on a wakeboard every now and again and skates a bunch. And, it's a shame where you see guys like that who were just so influential in the sport, and see them drop out. And I guess it does come down to the way with sponsorship and things like that. Look, if you're not making a living out of it, then it's hard to go from wakeboarding because you're passionate about it, and and you've got these goals, and you're doing it for the passion. Then you start getting paid for it. Then it's hard to go back to wakeboarding for the passion of it again after that, I think. And
then you start to get to the age where you need a house, and you need all the shit that comes along with being an adult. And then if you want to have a relationship, and it's sort of, life does happen. And it's sort of, I don't know, people like, oh, you shouldn't let it stop you, but fuck, it's a reality.
And injuries as well. He had some weird injuries that just like, he sliced his finger on a wakeboard rack, and he was out for like 8 months.
That's bizarre.
Or something ridiculous, and just sliced a tendon, and just little things like that can just happen. I was plagued with injuries throughout my career, and I had one season where I got to the States, and within the first month, I put my lower back out, and I was out for, I think, 5 weeks. Managed to squeeze in 2 weeks of filming with Christian for, I think that was Deliberate, the film at the time. Squeezed in 2 weeks of filming, and then I was still a junior at the time, and I was trying to get on the junior tour. I won Worlds the year before, so I was like, all right, I can get a wild card in. And I get the call that I got a wild card, and I got 2 weeks before the contest. 30 minutes after getting that call, I broke my foot. Just being an idiot outside doing backflips with a bunch of kids that were living in the neighborhood that I was in. And I took a week off riding, and I was still so determined to go to that contest. Started riding again. It was actually how I learnt to get my toe 9 consistent, because I kind of felt like, I had to push off my front foot as I came off the wake, and my front foot was the one I broke. So if it hurt as I came off the top of the wake, I knew I'd done it right.
Yeah, right.
And it was so funny. But then, so then carrying on, like the day before that contest, and I was about to fly out, I went to O-Town to go and practice on the rails they had there, and I slipped out on one of the rails and tacoed over it. Hooked my board on one of the posts forward.
Oh, okay.
Hooked my board on one of the posts, swung into the side of it, and broke my leg. So I broke my fibula, I think it is, the smaller of the two bones.
At the back?
Yeah, or just on the side right below my knee.
Oh, yep.
Just sort of broke it there. And so I was out of that contest. I wasn't riding for another 6 weeks. Get back on my board, and this is right when Ronix was released. And I wasn't happy on the company I was on. I wasn't really getting anywhere. I'd won Worlds as a junior, but wasn't being put on their junior team. And that may or may not have been because the team manager was a pedophile and
really?
and only was putting small blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids on the team. Yeah, and he actually went to jail for a long time.
That's fucking heavy.
Yeah, it was nuts.
What company was that with?
That was with C-Dub. And I mean, it's not super publicly known, but a lot of people know that that's what went down. And
that's fucking wild.
And I found, there are probably some other reasons as well. Like, I mean, I'd done a few stupid things, like getting angry in contests and showing it, not hiding it, which is kind of what you should do. But then, so then anyway, like Ronix came about, and I go along to Surf Expo, and I, meet up with Chad Sharp and meet Paul O'Brien and Herb O'Brien at the time. And they were having this contest that was coming up in a few weeks, but I was flying home. So I wasn't going to be able to make it. And the contest they were running was to kind of, find some new team riders, like their new amateur riders and sort of up and coming team riders. And so I was kind of bummed I wasn't going to be there. So I was like chatting with Chad, and I'm like, hey man, I'd really love to be able to like ride with you guys and kind of just have the opportunity to, to show what I can do, because I can't make it to that event. And we were at OWC at the time. He's like, oh, have you got your board? I've got a boat here. I was like, okay, I guess. Go grab my board, go down to the dock, and they pull the boat up. And next thing, like Chad gets in the boat, Danny Half gets in the boat.
No shit.
Parks Bonifay gets in the boat. And I was like...
How old were you?
Shitting myself. This is 2006, so I would have been 23 or something, right. 22.
So for people that don't know, Parks Bonifay is like the Kelly Slater of...
Just the legend,
of wakeboarding. And Danny Half is like the Andy Irons. Like they're like the two biggest dudes, like OG guys that took wakeboarding into like a whole new level.
Yeah.
So 100%. You're a 23-year-old that's like asking for a chance to audition for the team, and then the two baddest motherfuckers of all time jump in the boat to like judge your shit.
Yeah. So with those three sitting there, I was like shaking in my boots, and it was like the sun had already gone down, like it was already, it was about to get dark. And I went out and I had one of the best sets that I've ever had.
No way.
Landed pretty much everything except like one or two of my tricks. And I remember one of my buddies was sitting in the boat, and I did a trick, and I knew I did it on purpose because I knew Parks would love it. And it was like I used to do a nuclear glide, so nuclear grabs, like where you grab with your backhand. You reach all the way around the front.
Like that, right?
Yeah, all the way around the front to the back edge of your board, like behind your front foot kind of thing. And I knew Parks loved like what he called a Buttafuoco, which is like a 911, like a glide where you go sort of backside rotation and then you kind of bring it around all the way 180 and land fakie. And so I did a nuclear Buttafuoco, like nuclear glide to fakie, and he loved it. Like, and I remember my buddy getting out of the boat and he was like, dude, they're like, oh man, I didn't realize he rode so good, you know, like saying all this stuff, and I was just frothing, like
that's
so stoked. But and it wasn't like instantly they were like, yeah, you're on the team or anything, like, cause what happened like a week later, like I still had Worlds coming up, and
was it on one of their boards or was it on your old board?
No, it was on my old board at the time, and Worlds was coming up, and then I ended up like I was out training and ended up breaking my leg again.
Ugh.
So like I guess it hadn't healed properly. I ended up like getting hung up in a trick upside down and kind of pulled it around super late and smashed my chin on my knee, like split my chin open and broke my leg in the same crash. So it was a pretty shit season, like apart from, you know, the couple little highlights like filming with Christian and then that like riding with the, you know, with the Ronix guys. And so I'm like, and not only that, like I'm like, all right, I'm done, I'm going home, like, you know, tail between my legs kind of thing, on crutches. I got a board bag, a suitcase, a laptop bag and a backpack, trying to get from, you know, I'm on the flight like to LA, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to get to my next flight? And they told me that unless I was in a wheelchair that they won't have someone like come get my bags and stuff for me. So I was going to have to be in a wheelchair. And anyway, I was like worrying so much about that I get off the plane, get to my next flight, and I'm like, oh shit, my passport.
Oh no.
And it was in the seat back pocket of the last plane, which had already left to go to Hawaii.
Fuck.
So I ended up spending 24 hours in LAX, just like with a broken leg, sleeping in the corner, like just it was shit. I was like, you know, credit card maxed out, no phone credit left, no money. I luckily bumped into a dude who I became friends with, who was friends with a few of my buddies back home. He was on the same flight home, and so I bumped into him. He gave me $100. Like, he's like, all right, you know, this will get you through the next day so you can get home. And but yeah, so it was kind of a shit season, and you get, you know, plagued by injuries like that. And you know, I blew my knee and did my shoulder and a few other things as well throughout the years. So there's always those setbacks. But yeah, once I got home and got healed up and met the dude who was bringing in Ronix into New Zealand, Duncan, and I rode one of their boards. To be honest, I really didn't like it. Tried their boots on, they didn't have my size. They had like a size 10 and I was a 12. But I ended up riding it, and like it was okay, but it wasn't the board that I wanted. I wasn't the one board, which was Danny Haas.
Yeah, okay.
And so like, I mean, I didn't care. I was like, cool, yeah, I'm in, you know. Like he was like, you want to ride for us? I'm like, sweet,
yeah,
let's do this. And so I got back to the States. Hadn't, you know, I'd only ridden that one board. Like I was riding Jeff Weatherall's Pro Model at the time. Just like in between, because I'd sort of just left C-Dub, and I was like, I'm not happy where I'm at. Not jumping ship to another company yet because I haven't been given any opportunity. I'm just, you know, I enjoy riding that board that, you know, had Jeff's name on it, and spray painted Ronix across the bottom, and got back to the States, had a couple boards waiting for me, and landed my first Heel 9 first set on Danny's board.
Really?
And I was like, yep, sold. I'm in, done. You know, it was perfect. So that was a cool time. Those years were definitely my favorite years, and you know, in my career, and going through probably from, you know, maybe to the 2008, I'd say, like if I had to highlight one year, I mean that was a 1080 year. That was you know, a good year on the Aussie Pro Tour. I think I got second at the New Zealand stop, and I think I got third overall on the Aussie Pro Tour. That was the last year of the Pro Tour, and yeah, it was a fun time that year.
How much did Jeff influence you when you were younger?
Yeah, quite a lot. Like at the very beginning, I didn't really ride with him much at all. I kind of, you know, had my own crew that I rode with, my buddies Ants and Brant, You're both quite a bit older, you know, sort of 5 years older than me. And, you know, here I was, this like 12, 13-year-old showing up at the wakeboard club, like, and I ended up getting sent to, going along to one of these contests. And my mum was friends with my buddy Brant's dad and was like, hey, you know, would you mind like taking Brad down and looking after him? And here's Brant, like he's probably 18 at the time, and going, oh, you know,
don't want to babysit this kid.
Have to babysit, yeah, totally. And then next thing, I'm like, they got me drunk and I'm doing backflips on the dance floor and like just having an awesome time. This was back when Mark Kenny was around, and before he died, and you know, he was there. And I just remember that, you know, I landed my first flip, like my first tantrum behind an old outboard, and you know, and became friends with those guys. But then I started going along to the Ballistics wakeboard camp and spent a bit of time there, and that's when I really met Jeff and got to hang out and ride with him a bunch. And to be honest, I didn't really get along with him at first. Like it's funny too, because I think it's just because he's the type of guy, he just gives you shit. Like he's
so like just down the line, eh?
Yeah, totally. And I wasn't ready for that, I don't think, at the time. And it was once I accepted the fact that he could be a cunt, then it was great. Like, you know,
he was a cunt out of love.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
You know, and there'd be times that like he would give me so much shit on the dock at wakeboard, at the contest at nationals, and that's one thing that like kind of bugs me, and he loves it, is that I never got to beat him at a New Zealand nationals. Like,
oh, that was like his shit.
Yeah, like I beat him in a few other contests, like at Worlds and a few others, but never got a national title while he was there. Like I won one national title, but he wasn't there that year. But yeah, it was the type of thing like I remember one year, like he was last off the dock, I was second to last, and I'm standing there in my boots, ready to jump off the dock, ready to go, and as the ropes were about to come tight, Jeff's like, hey Brad, go nuts. Go nuts, bro, go nuts. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? And I turn around and he's got his nuts hanging out, like waving them around at me. I was like, the fuck, dude? Like, just, it was so funny, but we had this fun rivalry. Like it was really cool. And when I first started going to the States, like that's when Jeff and I started to, you know, I guess we became a lot closer, and I was living with them and with him and Kathy and Andrea and a few others. Like sort of we bounced around a few houses and rode with Jeff a lot, and he sort of took me under his wing, and that was the point, like those first 2 years, I think, when I was in the States, where I went from being this kind of grommet that he took under his wing to being this dude that was competing at the same level as him, and you know, learning some tricks that you know, we had our own different styles. So I was learning some tricks he couldn't do. He could do tricks that I couldn't do. And
plus, I think there's like a thing to be said for when you're like, he's older and part of that generation. So I think when he grew up, there's almost like a boundary where you're confided to in your mind of like what's possible, right? And then you grew up in that era of when your mindset of what's possible was just that little bit further than his because of the way that he grew up. Does that make sense? Like, because I think about that a lot, especially with motocross. Like, that's sort of my main background. And you think that, like, you know, James Stewart, like when he did the scrub.
Yeah.
So then, like,
scrub.
all those dudes that he were racing against were like, boom, like their mind was fucking blown. They're like, I can't do that. But then you get all those kids on 65s that are at the time going like, oh, I'm going to learn how to bubba scrub. And then by the time
it sets the new benchmark.
Yeah, I think that you, like, Jeff had that benchmark that was set for him, and then he'd gone past that, but then your idea of what the benchmark was kind of past his, and then you kind of got to grow up in that. Yeah,
totally. And then you see it now, like the benchmark is double flips off the wake, and so you're seeing kids that are like
10, 11 years old thinking that's what's happening.
That's what they can just go and do, like it's what's possible. It's the same with, you know, the first backflip on a motorbike. No one thought it was even possible, and now the dude's doing triples.
Yeah.
Like what like it's just insane, and it's crazy how the evolution of sports like works like that. And I think as well, like I was really lucky to have older guys like, you know, like Jeff and Brant and Ants in those early years, like take me under their wing, because it meant that I was automatically kind of, you know, they were better riders than me. They were sort of, you know, like at that higher level. So it meant that I had to kind of work up to that, and I had to kind of throw myself in the deep end, I guess. And because if you're out there riding with people that are either at the, you know, same level or not as good as you, like, I guess the same level, you push each other.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're the best guy out there all the time, then you don't really have the incentive or the push to really to drive and learn as much. And that's where I really loved the fact that, you know, riding with people that are better than you, like, it just pushes you to kind of, you know, build your own level up. And I think that's, you know, I definitely attribute a lot of my success in my riding and a lot of what I did to the people that I rode with, and as well, like, the things that we watch and the things that we absorb.
Yeah.
Just through, you know, back then it was all just the wakeboard videos that would come out every 6 months or so, and I mean, going off on a tangent, I loved that era where you had to wait, you know, for the new movie to come out, and it's someone's section that they put it the whole season into. Whereas now it's like, go out for a set, and then within 5 minutes you've Instagrammed it, and it's just like, it's not as special. No, because
we did grow up. Like, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Yeah, so I'm 29. Okay. So we grew up in that same era, and I remember, like, especially for us, like, I'd say to people because I lived in the States for like 6 years, and I'd say to the dudes in the States, I'd be like, you don't get it, bro. We got this shit late. Like, we fucking waited and waited and waited for our delivery of Krusty Demons, you know, 6 and Krusty Demons 7. Yeah. And then when we got those motherfuckers, they were on VHS, and we played them and played them and played them and played them. Like, and that was a special time. Like, I remember, you know, Travis Pastrana, Revelation 199. Like, the amount of times I would have watched that movie, or like Gromageddon, or, you know, it was special. And now, like, I don't find myself wanting to buy DVDs anymore because people aren't making them the way they did.
Yeah.
And then I find myself not really watching as much on the internet because it's never as good as the feeling that you got from waiting to have that.
It just seems like it's also watered down. Like, you're getting it so constantly that it doesn't have that impact. And I loved there was, you know, going back a few years, but, you know, like in snowboarding, you'd have Travis Rice would, you know, he'd be the ones you know, putting in the time doing, you know, for those epic films to come out, you know, Art of Flight and all of those ones. And then, you know, Danny Half did that in wakeboarding with Defy.
Dude, that was sick.
But again, it's almost, I mean, there are still, you know, you get those feature films that come out every year, but it almost seems like there's less and less happening. And but there's always, you know, there's definitely something to be said for a full length, you know, full section video part that you've put blood, sweat and tears into over months and months of writing and
kept it secret. And
exactly. And that's what I really loved about you know, my last year of writing, when we were filming for Prime. And, you know, the Lake Roanoke era, like that, you know, that was all just starting. And I mean, my role out there and everything, just how that all went was, it was so cool, like delving into that, you know, the filming process and helping Sean Kilgus out when I could, like with organizing things at the lake, because we had, you know, 10, 15 riders that are all wanting their little part and wanting to do this and that. And it was pretty stressful trying to like organize it all. And, but just putting the time in and coming up with different ideas, you know, and doing the step ups into the pool and hitting the mega ramp and all that sort of stuff was just such a fun time putting that sort of work in. And, you know, I'm really proud of the way the sections turned out, the Lake Roanoke sections. And even though I've only got, I think, 3 or 4 tricks in there, I think I'm more proud of the fact that, I mean, I built half the stuff that was out there, you know, well, I guess project managed like the builds and was involved a lot in helping organize it all. So, I mean, I was able to draw sort of pride out of other people's parts in the section too, like just the whole section as a whole. Yeah,
because you felt a part of more than just your own tricks.
Yeah, exactly, and that was really cool. I loved, you know, being a part of that, and I mean, yeah, that whole Lake Roanoke time was just epic. Like that was my, the dream come true. Really, that was it for me, and I was so stoked to be a part of all that.
What was it like to see guys like Jeff and Dean and everyone come together post accident to do what they did for you? Because I mean, that's what I really remember. Like, all those guys. Like, did Jeff spend like a lot of time with you in hospital even, and like a lot of people put their lives on hold in a way for a while to help you through that. Like, how much does that mean now to you, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, it just means the world. I mean, it was such a heavy time that, Jeff at the time was in California, and he heard about my injury and pretty much dropped everything and flew straight out. And I mean, and he wasn't in a great financial position to be able to do so, but, he was just wanted to be there to help and knew that. I think at the time, like, I don't know if there was anyone else that could have done what Jeff did for me, because I don't know, like he just hustled. Like he just got on the phone to like calling anyone and everyone, like getting in contact with people like Barney Miller and Josh Wood, like, and other guys that have been through this. And he was like, all right, what do we need to do? And okay, fundraising. Okay, what's best to help with Brad directly? Okay, like things like while I was in the hospital, they'd come in and just massage my hands or my feet, or bring in different things like that would remind me of wakeboarding, or even smells and things like my board sitting there, or
really
whatever it was that I guess it was just like, and Jeff, he basically, we had that first fundraiser in Orlando, raised a solid chunk of money there, and it was really cool to see the community come together and support me, and then we had fundraisers all over the world in different parts, like, and I think most of it came like attached with Prime, and so people would do Prime premieres, but they'd do them as a fundraiser for me. And there were people that I'd never met in countries that I'd never been to holding fundraisers for me.
That's fucking sick.
And it blew my mind. Like, and it was crazy to think that that I'd had an impact on people to the point where they felt, compelled to do that. And like, I didn't feel like I was the most outgoing, sort of the most overly friendly type of guy. Like, if I was somewhere and I didn't feel comfortable, like I wasn't really the type that would go out and just start a conversation with someone a lot of the time, because I'd feel quite held back. And, and I would try to be friendly, and I'd chat to people, and, people come up and talk and have a conversation with them and everything.
You weren't like fully in it.
No, and I didn't realize that, like that I had made that much of an impact. Like even in the 2 minutes of talking to someone at an event, just passing by, then next thing I see that they're, sticking up their board with I Ride for Brad, and, they're doing fundraisers and whatever it is that they can do to help. And I mean, it blew me away to have that kind of support. It was just incredible. And as well, just my friends, and as you said, Jeff and Dean, and all the crew on Ronix, and just all my close friends that would come through. We were pretty limited. Like, we kind of limited the amount of people that were coming through while I was in the ICU.
Yeah.
Just because I was on isolation as well. I had pneumonia, and obviously it was a pretty rough time. But then once I got moved up to Shepherd Center up in Atlanta, again, it was still just like a revolving door of people just rolling through, and people would do road trips and drive up, and we'd some pretty funny times, like Massey and Dean and Chad and a bunch of crew would come up and just, we'd just have a good time. And those were sort of, the first kind of lighthearted times I had after the injury was, just having those guys there, and Chris O coming up and feeding me candy that had medicinal weed oil in it and stuff. And it was pretty cool. Like, it was pretty funny. Like, I'm sitting there outside in the garden, like with my mum and a couple other people, and then Chriso like walks up all sly and just without even saying hello, like just arrived, walks up and just puts a piece of candy in my mouth. And Mum looks at me and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. You know,
let's go with it.
Yeah. So no, it's definitely very humbling to have that amount of people sort of help, you know, like, because I was also always a very independent person.
Because I think that sorry to cut you off, dude. When I spoke to Barney on the podcast, that's one of the things that he said that I kind of like didn't really think about too much with this sort of injury is that he says he feels really guilty that people always have to like do stuff for him. Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, I've been through definitely feeling like a burden and feeling guilty. Like I felt so guilty for my mum's pain, and that was something that was one of the first things that me and Susie worked through. You know, basically saying, look, I'm not responsible for my mum's like pain, I guess, in a way. Like even though it's as a result of what I did and how I hurt myself, but that's a mother's job in a way, you know, like to worry about their kids and to do, you know, that's her thing. Like I can't control that. Yeah. And you know, but their lack of independence and getting people to help all the time and things, you know, like there are times where I do feel like a burden, and I have to pick and choose what I ask people to help with, because if I'm asking for things that I want all the time, you know, or ask for everything that I need or want, then I'd be constantly asking people to, you know, I've got an itch, I need scratching, or, you know, I want the volume turned up two little notches or whatever, you know, like sometimes I just deal with it as it is so that I don't have to ask. You know, even drinking a glass of water, I'll scull the whole glass in one go because I don't want to have to ask them like over and over again to keep bringing me the glass back. Yeah. Just simple things like that. And, you know, it's to the point where I've been able to work through that, and I don't really feel like a burden anymore because I know that my friends help because they want to
help. Yeah.
And you know, they want to be able to do things, and you know, they'll put in the extra effort and go through all the extra bullshit that they need to go through for me to be able to go along and be a part of the things that they're doing because they want me there. And that's what's really cool. And it did take a while for me to be able to work through that. But again, it was something that, you know, I'd say everyone in my position, or, you know, in any sort of position like this would feel the same way. And, but yeah, it just comes down to the fact that people love to be able to help. Yeah. And, you know, with the fundraising side of things early on, that was what we were told, you know, like this is an expensive injury, and we didn't really realize, you know, didn't know any of these things at the time. And so to get that information from Barney and from Josh and from Chris Ackerman and a bunch of other guys that Jeff connected with early on was really, really important information. Like, because if we hadn't raised that money at the time, like, I wouldn't be in the position I am now to be able to, you know, be relatively comfortable and not have to be stressing about, okay, I need to get a job now. Yeah. And what am I actually going to do? Like, and I am at the point now where I am looking at that because I want to. Yeah. And I want to move forward, and I want to be, you know, contribute and be an active member of society and things like that. But early on, it was just, early on it was just more that like medical bills and all the costs and things like that. And that, I did get really, really lucky that a lot of my bills for my ICU stay. And one thing I found really weird, like the bill comes in at 150 grand, or whatever it was. Then the next bill comes in and that adjusted it and written non-insurance discount. Now the bill's only 30 grand because I didn't have insurance. Really?
Oh, so they just knew that if they hit you with the 150 without insurance that you just wouldn't pay it.
Probably,
so then they just took it down to 30, just be like, let's just hope he fucking pays it.
Yeah, and then I got really lucky that Florida Medicaid actually kicked in and paid that.
Really?
So, I mean, they're like, I think they support like low income families when they have children, or sudden traumatic, like out of the blue type accidents and things like that. And I mean, again, I don't really know, like maybe it was my mum, or I can't remember who it was that actually helped us get to that, but that was really cool. And then when I went to Shepherd Center, I was there for 3 months, and that probably would have been 250 to 300 grand. But again, I got a scholarship to be there, so I didn't have to pay a cent. And then like on to the biggest thing was getting covered by ACC in New Zealand, which is like our government healthcare for accidents. So if you're in a car accident, or you slip and break your leg or whatever, like ACC comes and they'll pay your medical bills, and they'll pay you 80% of what you were earning until you're able to work again.
Really?
And so it's actually kind of funny, because I was the fact that I was living in the States and I just got a visa to actually live there full time, and I didn't have a return flight booked or anything like that. So basically they weren't going to cover me. So, I mean, usually you can, if you're just traveling as a tourist and you're outside of the country for up to 6 months, I think it is, then they'll still cover you once you get home. But so basically I wasn't going to get covered. So I was going to be sort of having to deal with all the shit on my own. But we managed to find a bit of a loophole. And it came down to the fact that Bank of America denied me a credit card.
No shit.
So I'd applied for a credit card because I was working at Lake Ronix and going to the hardware store all the time to buy material to build ramps and rails and whatever else. And so I had to put that on my New Zealand credit card, and they would reimburse me to my New Zealand account, which meant I had a taxable income in New Zealand, which I was paying ACC levies on. So it meant that by paying that tax, I was covered. So, and since then, I mean, like because of that, like they've been amazing. They pay for my caregivers. I have 24/7 care. So I've got a caregiver with me all the time. They pay for my medication, all my hospital bills. They bought me a van. They pay for my equipment and rehab, and well, a lot of it anyway, not all of it, but I mean, without that, I would have been screwed. Like all of the money that was raised would be long gone by now, and I'd be digging a hole of debt, or having to find ways to fund everything now. So it's been really cool, and I've been very, very fortunate to have had all of that, and the money that was raised, there's still a decent chunk of it which I've invested in some safe investments that it just means that I'm able to be in a good place for my future. Yeah. And also, I'm starting a foundation, and I want to put some of that money back into it to be able to help and get spinal cord injury research along, see if we can speed things up to help find a cure, and so that money raised, if I can put it back and help others with it, then I'd love to be able to do that.
How long did it take for you to get back to a I'd say you got a positive outlook now. How long did it take for you to get to the point where you had a positive outlook on this situation?
I think very early on after my accident, like still in the ICU, I decided that I was going to be positive and I was going to fight it, and I was going to, work through it. Because, I mean, there were some pretty dark times in the very first couple of weeks where if I'd have been able to grab a gun and hold it to my head, pull the trigger, I would have. But funny thing is, if I'd have been able to grab a gun and had the ability to hold it to my head, you
wouldn't have wanted to.
I wouldn't have needed to. But it was pretty dark, and
so what was the process of you? Because I mean, I know it's heavy to talk about, but I think it's important to talk about because people find themselves in those situations without going through the kind of thing that you've gone through. Yeah. There's a lot of people that struggle with depression. There's a high suicide rate for people that are our age, especially young men. Yeah. So it's what did you do to get out of that? Because that'd be a low place to be, to think I can't even do this. Yeah.
To be honest, I think it was just my friends and family that were, seeing the amount of support and, especially in those early times, knowing that, the sport, you know, and the community was behind me, and that, you know, my family were there and people had flown in and were supporting and getting not just the donations, but the messages coming through of support, and everything was, I mean, I think that's kind of what turned it around for me. But, you know, like the whole depression and suicide thing, like I've definitely had a better look at a better understanding of it now than I did before. And, you know, I can understand, like there was what was it? There was a show that I went along to that my girlfriend at the time was in, and it was a pretty dark show, like it was about depression and suicide and stuff. And they showed this clip of when the Twin Towers got struck, and, you know, there's these burning buildings and people are leaping out from how many stories up to and falling to their death. And as they're showing it, like as the person's falling, it's just this very like peaceful looking moment. And you can imagine,
scarily peaceful.
Yeah, but you can imagine being in a burning building, and that's your only option, is just to jump out. And like for some people, their lives and the situation that they're in can feel like that burning building, and to take that leap, you know, is to them maybe a peaceful way of sort of dealing with it. But the way I like to look at it is that, you know, our friends and our family and our supporters and the people around us, like they're our firefighters in a way. They come in and they're the ones that put the fire out, and they can kind of they're the ones that can make things better for us again. And so I was really lucky to have that support. And I think, you know, some people may not have such an amazing support network, but finding someone to be able to talk to, because, you know, that was just the very early on, and just deciding that, okay, yes, I'm going to fight this. But it wasn't until probably 8 or 9 months ago that I actually was at peace with where I was at, and fully accepted things. And I think it was at that point where I was really able to enjoy life again, and not be out in public and looking around at everyone and going, oh, I'm different, I'm in a wheelchair, blah, blah, blah. Like there are times, and actually it's been kind of funny, where I'll like catch myself and I'm like, I completely forgot that I'm in a wheelchair. Yeah. And that moment actually of acceptance and everything actually came after seeing the neurosurgeon and getting my MRI scans back, and seeing the amount of scar tissue build up and everything, and basically seeing how much I'd fucked my spinal cord up. That really sucked for about 24 hours or so, you know, a day or two. And I think I went through this moment of realization of acceptance, and of being able to be okay with where things are at, and like go, okay, well, now I can see visually, like I really, you know, did a number on that thing. I dropped from several stories up at however many miles for a 20-something mile an hour or more. And I guess because I was looking at other people that were getting movement back and things like that, and I'm like, why am I not? I'm putting so much effort in, and I just felt like, you know, I was like, you know, why can't I get this movement back? And it kind of, you know, it explained things to me, and then it was just this weird point of realization, and I was at peace with it after that. And it's kind of strange when something like that happens, and something that was really shitty, but it resulted in me being able to be okay with the situation. And acceptance was something, I hated that word. People said I had to accept this, and I'm like, fuck you. Yeah. And but I think I realized that it wasn't accepting that this is how things are going to be forever. It's just accepting that this is how it is now. Right now. And that can change, you know. And I think that's the one, I think a big thing for everyone to be able to realize is, like, the situation we're in, no matter how dark and how shitty it may seem, like, we can change it, like, and it will change. And sometimes, you know, those situations are just there to test us, and usually, you know, I'd say more times than not, you come out the other end stronger and and a better person for it.
Yeah, and I think that an attitude that I always try and have is that we spoke about it on the last podcast with Sam Webb from the Live.org, the mental health charity, and it's basically that you need the low to feel high. Without that, life's about contrast, and it's about either side of zero. And if you didn't have anything negative, you couldn't have anything positive.
Totally.
And I think that a lot of the times out of your deepest and darkest moments are the times where the best feelings are, because then you all of a sudden are able to then, well, it's like you said, it's perspective. But if you've got nothing to offset, it's impossible to have perspective without a contrast between two forces.
Yeah.
So I think that it's out of those really dark times. And like, I'm sure that with you, the relationships that you've got with people are now so much stronger because of, you know, everything that's happened.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, like, as I was saying, the friends that kind of came through and helped out with everything after my injury and stuff, like just to know that they were there for me and everything, and you know, the relationships I have with them now, like, you know, I'm flying down to Sydney today to go to a wedding, but you know, I'm going to go catch up with Dino and Amber and their family, because Dean was one of the two to pull me out of the water when I had my accident, him and Chad. And so, you know, I just feel like, especially with those two, like there's just this bond there. It's like they kind of saved my life. So and I think it's just it's a pretty interesting thing how dark times can bring good things.
Well,
like,
dude, talking about 9/11, there's a crazy statistic that the suicide rates in New York City after 9/11 like plummeted.
Wow. Because
people, it's through the shit times that actually binds people together. And I think that it gives, the kind of argument is that it gives people a meaningful purpose that they sometime kind of like might lack in day-to-day life, and how things get like kind of routine and mundane. Like you don't really have that kind of thing to like bind people together. But when these tragic things happen, that does create that bond. And that's why you see, even with guys that come back from like Iraq and war, like they miss the war, not for the killing and the bloodshed, but for the bond that is created, that's forged in the fires of hell almost. You know what I mean? So it's like it is crazy, and it's counterintuitive that darkness and sadness is what would stop people from feeling, you know, like that whole suicide rate going down. Like it's very counterintuitive, isn't it?
That's insane. That's actually really interesting that
because
that statistic like that,
the city felt like it had to pull together. It had because I think people do feel disconnected. Like we're more connected than ever in terms of the, you know, social media and the news and the internet. Like you can look up like all of human history's discoveries are on fucking google.com. So it's like, what you'd think that would be the time that would be the greatest to live in, but for some reason people feel more disconnected than ever. And it's crazy that it does take these things that you've been through. Like you knew the same people, you knew Dean, you knew Chad, but in this perfect life that you were living, you didn't have nowhere near the connection that you did to these guys that you did after this thing happened that changed your life in a way.
Totally.
It's crazy to think, huh?
Yeah, no, it is definitely.
So what's we're running out of time, so that's why I wanted to talk about your foundation that you are trying to get off the ground. How can people get involved? Is it at that stage yet, or?
We're very close to that stage. I think at this point we're just working through like getting charitable status and you know, getting the right people involved. And the thing I'm most excited about is actually launching the first fundraising campaign, which is one I've been working on for a while, and it's one that a lot of people can get involved with. And it's basically, I mean, without going into too much detail, but kind of targeting like the whole man bun, top knot, hipster beard trend. So yeah, you're going to be.
Do I qualify?
You definitely qualify.
You're going to make me shave that shit off, aren't you?
No, I'm not going to make you, but your friends and family and followers might.
Okay.
So it's basically like a voting type thing,
Right.
So it's giving people the option. So I've been growing my hair for 5 years now. It's gotten way too long. And basically after my accident, my buddy Brant, when I was back in New Zealand, he comes to the hospital and he had started growing his hair as well. And he basically was like, I'm growing my hair until you walk again. And I was like, sweet, I'm in. Let's do this. And then now almost 4 years on, like I'm not that much closer to walking. So I'm like, all right, we need to find a way out of this. Like, and the only way to do it is to raise a solid chunk of money. So, we're just putting things together at the moment, getting everything kind of figured out. But yeah, that's the plan, is to kind of try to, I guess, use the reach that I've got through, my immediate network, and then trying to just use that whole viral kind of spread if we can. And I think like something like that with, like the whole man bun thing, like it's been around long enough that some people are getting sick of it. Yeah. And I feel like there would be a lot of people like, wanting to nominate their buddies and their brother or their
it's a sick
whatever.
concept.
So I think, if we can nail it, then I think it could go really well. And so I'm going back to the States later this year to launch that, hopefully in September for Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month. And but yeah, with the foundation, really the focus is, there are a lot of spinal cord injury foundations out there, a lot of people raising money, a lot of people putting money toward research and things like that. And I was just thinking like, man, how do I find a point of difference? How do I do something that's actually going to bring change and not just be reinventing the same wheel that everyone else is doing? And I think the approach that I've figured out in this kind of light bulb eureka moment happened a few months ago, where I basically decided that we're going to look to try to map out what the actual cure is going to be. And basically like, get a scientific board together. They can go through all the research that's happening, and because it's a, sort of a collaborative thing that I want to get happening, because you've got stem cells, or you've got electrical stimulation, like implants that they can do and things like that. But I mean, for me, like I went through the desperation phase of like, I got to go to India or Panama or wherever to go get stem cells. And then when I actually took the time to look at it, I'm like, that's just going to be a waste of money, because it's like there's been a landslide across a highway, and the highway being my spinal cord, and the landslide of all the shit across the highway is like the scar tissue that's there. And without removing that scar tissue first, you can't, or the landslide, you can't repair the highway. So it's got to be looked at as the bigger picture as a whole, and so first for me, like the scar tissue needs to go. Then we need to look at creating that environment for healing. So that's with the stem cells, and whichever type of stem cells. I mean, there's a lot of work going on there. They're not quite there yet, but there is some amazing stuff happening with it. And then then looking at those electrical stimulation type things for reconnecting the signals and mapping out our motor functions and stuff again, and so to be able to put that together in a way to be able to present it, to say like, look, 8 years and $250 million, whatever the number may be. Yeah,
like almost create an end game kind of thing.
Yeah, and even though like I feel like a lot of the time spinal cord injury is referred to as being similar to like a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to get through it real quick. Like it's something it's going to take a long time. I feel like in a marathon, not that I've ever done one, if you see the finish line, you probably get a bit more energy. You put a bit more work in and get a bit more excited and whatever. And even though this is going to be an evolving finish line, it's something that's going to move. It's going to evolve as the research evolves. But by having that finish line there, it means people can invest in it and they can buy into it, and they can kind of feel like they don't need to go and get stem cells just because it's the only thing that they think is available, and it might do something that gives them 2% return. Like if maybe the first finish line in this map gives, you know, like 10-15% return, and then 5 years later or a few years later, like they can do something that's better. But it also means that when people are donating and they're raising money, that their $20 or $100 drop in the bucket is actually going to fill the bucket. You know, whereas with a lot of the research going on at the moment and fundraising, and same with cancer research and things like that, it's a bottomless pit. So I just really want to be able to have, collaborate with other foundations to raise that money, and to collaborate with other people in similar positions to be able to drive the fundraising side of things, and you know, try to get researchers to collaborate on the bigger picture. So that's where we've come up with the name, the Movement Collaborative. And so I'm just in the process of pulling that all together now, and hoping in the next couple of years we'll be able to make a bit of an impact.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, you got a flight to catch, so you can go and do your other job of emceeing weddings. And man, I really appreciate you making the time to come hang. Like, it was fucking awesome to meet you and hear your story, and I hope people get something out of this, and let me know as soon as there is a place where people can contribute to the foundation, and anything we can do to get involved, full support from us. So
awesome. Yeah, cheers, Chase. It's been awesome to be on here, and thanks for having me. And we'll definitely I'll be checking out more of the podcast, because you know, like, it's awesome to see, like, you know, Jeff's one and Barney's and everything. I've been going back and watching a few of them now and listening in. So yeah, I'm pumped, and thanks again for having me.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, man. It was definitely fun for me.
Yeah, it was a good time. Good convos.
Sick, dude.
Yeah. Cheers, bud.
Cheers. All right, man.